The sun was just starting to dip low over the Kansas horizon, casting long shadows across the flat field surrounding the city of Topeka. It was one of those late summer evenings where everything felt a little too still. Dust hung in the air, kicked up by long-haul trucks that roared down I-70 like mechanical thunder, and the heat lingered like a weight on the skin. Sergeant Delila Monroe rolled southbound in her dusty SUV, her fingers tapping the steering wheel in time with the slow, honeyed melody of Alicia Keys. The windows were cracked just enough to let the breeze in. It wasn't loud inside. Her phone, clipped beside the dashboard, played music on low. Her boots were off, sitting in the passenger footwell, and her thick wool socks were dusty from the training field. Her back ached, and her legs were stiff, but it was the kind of tired that came with purpose, a good tired. She had just wrapped up a 14-hour day at Fort Riley. It was a routine logistics inspection. Gear checks, movement drills, and 2 field briefings that left her hoarse from barking orders. But she never complained. That wasn't Delila's way. She was the kind of woman who carried her discipline like armor, even when off duty. As she passed the Fairlawn Road exit, the soft red and white glow of a quick-trip gas station lit up her periphery. She blinked hard. Her water bottle was bone dry, and her gas tank was hovering near E. With a soft exhale, she flipped on her turn signal and pulled into the lot. The Quick Trip was clean, well-lit, and mostly quiet. A pair of teenagers lingered by the vending machines outside, sipping from styrofoam cups. A nurse in teal scrubs leaned against her sedan, scrolling through her phone. The world was ordinary in that moment. And in Delila's mind, there was no reason to believe it wouldn't stay that way. She parked near Pump 3, slipped her boots back on with a groan, and stretched her arms overhead until her shoulders popped. She ran a hand over the front of her dusty but crisp uniform. Her nameplate was secure. Monroe, in block letters. The American flag patch on her right sleeve still bright despite the field grime. Above her left breast, U.S. Army. She walked toward the gas station door, her keys in hand, her mind already on the ice-cold bottle of water she would grab from the cooler. The sliding doors whooshed open, and a blast of cold air washed over her. Inside, it was silent except for the hum of refrigerators and the occasional clink of the slushy machine. The cashier didn't say anything. He just stared. Delila offered a nod. Polite. Professional. He didn't nod back. She walked to the back, selected a bottle of water, and made her way to the counter. Pump 3, she said calmly, placing the water bottle down. The man, middle-aged, pale, wiry, with a heavy gray mustache and glasses slipping low on his nose, didn't speak at first. His eyes roamed. Boots. Nameplate. Rank. Skin. You active duty? He finally asked, voice low. Yeah. Out of Fort Riley, she said, already fishing for her debit card. He didn't respond. Just rang up the water. She inserted the chip. Declined. Chip's been glitching, she muttered. I'll swipe. He watched her hand. Like it was a threat. She felt it. That subtle shift. The kind you can't always explain but always know. Something in his stare wasn't curiosity. It was evaluation. Suspicion. You said you were active duty, he asked again, slower. Delila kept her tone calm. Yes, sir. Logistics officer. Sergeant Monroe. Still, he didn't answer. Just handed her the receipt like he was handling a live wire. She nodded and left. What she didn't see was him disappearing into the back room. What she didn't hear was the phone being picked up. What she didn't know was that less than 4 minutes later, 2 Topeka PD cruisers would roar into the parking lot like a tactical raid was underway. And that this gas station, this mundane stop, was about to become the center of something much bigger than she could imagine. The police dispatcher answered on the second ring. Police dispatch, what's your emergency? Stan, the cashier, tried to sound neutral. But even he knew his voice carried the edge of presumption. This is Stan at the Quick Trip on Fair Lawn. I've got a woman here, claiming to be military. Full uniform, boots and all. Says she's active duty. But something don't feel right. The dispatcher asked the expected questions. Was she threatening anyone? Had there been an incident? No, no threats, Stan replied. She paid. Didn't say anything wild. Just. I've seen a lot of real soldiers come through here. She don't look the type. The word hung there, unspoken but heavy. Type. He didn't say race. He didn't have to. 2 patrol units were dispatched. Not emergency protocol. Just a standard check. But their arrival felt anything but routine. For minutes later, Delila had just finished pumping her gas. She leaned against the hood of her SUV, drinking her water. Her phone buzzed. A message from her squad about dinner plans. She smiled faintly. Then the police cruisers pulled in. 2 of them. Fast. Purposeful. Lights flashing. No sirens. Delila's body tensed, a reflex honed by years of training. Her eyes followed their path as they pulled in at opposing angles, blocking her SUV from both sides. Doors opened. 2 officers stepped out, 1 male, 1 female. Hands hovered near their holsters. "Ma'am," the male officer said, "put your hands where we can see them." Delila blinked, slowly raising her hands, one still holding the water bottle. "What's this about?" she asked, careful to keep her voice level. "We got a call. You're in military gear. We need to verify you're not impersonating," the female officer said, her tone more reserved. Delila stood upright. "I'm Sergeant Delila Monroe. Active duty. Fort Riley. My military ID is in my front pocket. You can take it out." The male officer stepped closer. "Keep your hands up." "I'm not reaching," Delila replied calmly. Behind the glass, Stan was watching. Jaw tight. Arms crossed. He looked like he was waiting for a prize to be handed out. The officers exchanged a glance. A beat too long. Uncertainty. Delila noticed. She knew that look. It was the look of people who'd committed to a decision they couldn't back out of. "Turn around," the male officer said. "I'm not resisting. I'm complying. But again, I'm active duty. My ID is." "Turn around now." She complied. Hands still up. Still calm. Still hoping logic would prevail. The officer grabbed her wrists, rough, too rough, and cuffed her. The cold bite of steel on her skin made her exhale sharply. "This is insane," she said under her breath. A voice cut through the scene. "Seriously?" It was the woman in scrubs, stepping forward from beside her car. "She's in uniform. What the hell is wrong with y'all?" The officers didn't respond. Delila lowered to her knees as ordered, now face down on the concrete. Her water bottle rolled across the pavement. "Can I speak to your supervisor?" she asked. "You'll speak to someone at the station," the officer replied. The woman in scrubs stepped closer. "This is what happens when y'all are scared of folks like her." Delila said nothing. She focused on her breathing. On not giving them a reason. Another voice. Younger. Closer. "Hey, you want me to call someone for you?" A teen with his phone out whispered. She nodded. "My phone's on the front seat. Unlock code 4379. Call Captain Dorsey." Under favorites. The teen jogged off. The officers didn't stop him. Because deep down, they were already starting to question themselves. And they had no idea who was about to walk through that door. Captain Dorsey was not a man who raised his voice unless absolutely necessary. Years in the military had taught him that real command didn't require shouting, it required presence. And when he got the call from a teenage voice, stammering that Sergeant Delila Monroe had been handcuffed in uniform at a gas station, he didn't raise his voice then either. He asked for the address. He wrote it down. He hung up. Then he moved. By the time Dorsey left Fort Riley's command building, 2 military police vehicles were already lined up in the lot. He stepped into the front one and gave a sharp nod to the driver. Roll. They didn't use sirens. Didn't need to. The MPs knew something serious had happened. Dorsey didn't offer detail. He simply tapped his fingers against his knee, his eyes locked on the road ahead. Each mile brought him closer to a truth he couldn't yet see, but already felt. Back at the quick trip, time crawled. Delila sat handcuffed against the interior wall now, pressed between a soda machine and a magazine rack. Her wrists burned. Her shoulders ached. Her water bottle had rolled to the other side of the store and now leaked slowly onto the tile. The woman in scrubs still stood nearby, arms crossed. She wasn't going anywhere. The cashier, Stan, had disappeared again, perhaps realizing things were shifting in a direction he couldn't control. The teenage boy who made the call was pacing outside with her phone, occasionally updating her. Captain Dorsey said he's on the way, he said. Delila nodded. The female officer, Officer McNeely, hovered near the front window. She was visibly uncomfortable. Her partner, Officer Benson, stood stiffly by the entrance, arms crossed over his vest. The awkward silence was broken only by the ding of the gas station door. 3 men entered. 2 wore military police uniforms. The third wore plain clothes, but he moved like authority. Captain Dorsey. The atmosphere shifted like gravity changed. Dorsey's eyes swept the room, registering everything, the woman in cuffs, the officers, the civilians. But his gaze settled on Delila. Sergeant Monroe. She looked up slowly. Sir. He stepped forward. What the hell happened here? The male officer, Benson, started to speak. We received a call about a suspicious individual. Dorsey held up a single finger. No. Don't explain to me. Uncuff her. Now. The command was quiet, but absolute. The officers hesitated. Sir, she gave you her ID. Identified herself. And you put her in restraints anyway? McNeely finally stepped forward and pulled the key from her belt. With shaking hands, she unlocked the cuffs. Delila flexed her wrists, red and sore. Dorsey's eyes flicked down to the marks. You all right, Sergeant? I will be, she replied. He nodded, then turned to the officers. You'll be hearing from Jag. Count on it. Benson stiffened. Look, we were just doing our jobs. No, Dorsey said. You were playing judge, jury, and uniform inspector because a gas station clerk didn't like the look of a black soldier in camo. The room fell silent again. The woman in scrubs shook her head. It's all on camera. The teenage boy held up the phone. Already posted. Dorsey looked back at Delila. She stood now, brushing off her uniform. Straightening her spine. Reclaiming herself inch by inch. Let's go, Sergeant. She nodded. As they walked out, she didn't look back. Didn't need to. Outside, her SUV still waited, engine now off, gas tank full. As she climbed into the front seat, Dorsey gave her one last glance. This should have never happened. I know, she said softly. But it did. By the time they pulled away from the gas station, the video had hit 100,000 views. 10 minutes later, it reached Twitter. Retweeted by a local journalist with the caption. This is Sergeant Delila Monroe. Active duty. Handcuffed in uniform. Gas station in Topeka. Because someone felt off. Another post from Gloria, the nurse in scrubs. This is what being black in America looks like, even in uniform. By 9 p.m. 3 hashtags were trending. Hashtag Sergeant Monroe. Hashtag Protect Black Women in Uniform. Hashtag This is America. The shift had changed at the gas station. A younger cashier was now behind the counter. Stan had clocked out early. Word was someone from corporate had called him personally. The officers? Gone. Their cruisers quietly pulled away, replaced by an unmarked supervisor's vehicle. Across the street, at a diner with a view of the lot, the regulars were split. One older man nursed his coffee and muttered, "Well, we don't know the whole story." But the waitress, a short black woman named Ariel, shook her head. "We know enough." She showed her ID. That should have been the end of it. Another diner chimed in. And if she had raised her voice? Moved wrong? That story ends way different. Back in her apartment, Delila sat on the couch in the dark. She still hadn't taken off her boots. Her wrists still stung. Her phone was glowing with mentions. She didn't cry. Didn't post. Captain Dorsey had called earlier. Told her the brass was already on it. Told her he was proud. Told her to rest. But rest doesn't come easy, not when your name is trending for surviving something you never should have had to. Tomorrow, she knew, would be different. Because the country had just watched a black soldier get cuffed on American soil. For wearing her uniform. By 8 a.m. the next morning, the mayor of Topeka, Judith Henley, had already issued a statement. It was cautious, legal, and heavy with phrases like, "currently under review," and, "we take these matters seriously." But outside the police department headquarters, a growing crowd wasn't interested in statements, they were looking for accountability. It started with a few. A woman holding a sign that read, "Would you cuff her if she looked like your daughter?" A teenage boy with a poster that simply said, "Respect the uniform." A nurse, Gloria, still in scrubs, standing tall with arms crossed. The press began arriving before noon. By the end of the hour, there were over 70 people in front of the Topeka Police Department, and it wasn't even lunch yet. Some held signs. Others just stood in silence, a human wall of grief, rage, and resolve. The story had already been picked up by national outlets. CNN ran a segment by noon. MSNBC had booked a military rights advocate for a live panel. Twitter was a flood. One clip, the moment Captain Dorsey walked into the gas station, had gone especially viral. People called it, "the entrance that changed everything." Delila's name was trending alongside hashtags like hashtag uniformed and black and hashtag served but still suspect. Back at Fort Riley, Dorsey was in full uniform again, pacing outside a conference room where military public affairs officers worked rapidly to draft a coordinated response. The Army couldn't ignore this, not when one of their own had been detained on civilian soil while in uniform. Not with the whole world watching. An hour later, a press release came from Fort Riley's Public Affairs Office. "We stand by Sergeant Monroe. She is a decorated soldier who has served her country with distinction. We are in direct contact with local and federal authorities to ensure full transparency and accountability in this matter." It was professional, controlled, but firm. Meanwhile, inside the Topeka PD headquarters, Chief Leonard Garvey looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes were red, his collar rumpled, and he stood behind a folding table instead of a podium. A row of reporters surrounded him, all with phones and mics aimed directly at his face. "I have reviewed the footage," he said. "I have spoken with Sergeant Monroe. I have spoken with her commanding officers at Fort Riley. This matter is under internal investigation, and Officers Benson and McNeely have both been placed on administrative leave." He paused, but the cameras didn't. One reporter asked, "Chief Garvey, do you believe race played a role in this?" A beat. Then, we are examining every element of this encounter. That includes implicit bias, procedural compliance, and officer discretion. Another reporter followed up. What about the cashier who made the call? Any accountability there? Chief Garvey adjusted his tie. The gas station is a private business. But we do intend to speak with the management. Every link in this chain needs to be examined. Back across town, Stan, the cashier who made the call, was already facing consequences. Someone had identified him on Twitter. His name, his face, the store location, it was all public now. By early afternoon, Quick Trip Corporate had issued a statement. We deeply regret the events that took place at our Topeka location. We are conducting a full internal review. The employee involved has been placed on indefinite suspension pending investigation. Translation, Stan was out. Inside her apartment, Delila watched all of it unfold from the quiet of her living room. She hadn't spoken publicly. Not yet. She didn't know if she wanted to. The idea of being a symbol was exhausting. But the messages kept coming. DMs from fellow soldiers. From black veterans. From mothers who had daughters in uniform. From strangers. She read one that said, "You didn't deserve that. Thank you for holding your ground." Another, "You showed the world what grace under pressure looks like." And one from a former officer in another state. "They saw your skin before they saw your rank. We see you. We stand with you." Delila exhaled. She hadn't cried the night before. Now, she did. Not because of the pain. Not because of the cuffs. But because for once, the world didn't turn away.